Shalom, shalom. This video will probably be a mess, but whatever. This is a topic that fascinates me, and I want to further the conversation on it for whatever that might be worth, which may not be much, but whatever. Dependent personality disorder has been a topic on the internet for quite a while. There are videos and articles and blog posts or whatever going back over a decade ago talking about it. But it's been becoming more popular to talk about more recently. There have been a lot more professional academic articles as of more recent being published on it, and I think it's very important. I definitely think a lot of people I've encountered in the past in certain situations, could there be a good argument that there was some dependent personality disorder going on, and I really want to understand it better, and why not try doing that out in the open to make a fool of myself. I'm glad to learn whatever I can about it. I think it's definitely become more popular to talk about because of narcissistic personality disorder, which seems to be a comorbidity with dependent personality disorder, but there's plenty about narcissistic personality disorder on the internet. So, what did I do for research? I found all the free books on Amazon that I could find about it and just read through them because I can't afford that many books. There's not much about it in my library, and well, yeah, just whatever literature seems promising, just go through it. So, we'll go through all my books, all the quotes I pulled from the books, and I'll give my thoughts. No, but really, there really aren't that many books on it. And the ones widely available are just like self-published, self-help-like style books, so really there's not much. I really prefer to, for the sake of a video, kind of talk about it along the lines of more personal narratives, but again, not much I could find. So hopefully this helps. So the first book is Dependent Personality Disorder, My Stories, Struggles, and Findings That You Can Learn From by Graham Mandeville. Someone with dependent personality disorder will struggle to voice their own opinions. They will often go along with whatever someone else says, even if they don't agree with it. They fear that if they disagree with someone, that person might walk out on them, and that possibility of atonement is too much for them to handle. Therefore, they would rather give up their own beliefs and attitudes towards something so they can be on the same page and not have to worry about being left behind. So that was the definition in a nutshell. It basically means being a pushover. Because you're so afraid of having any autonomy, it's better just to go with someone else's will. Basically have no thoughts of your own and let someone else's thoughts completely consume you. I definitely think someone with dependent personality disorder can attract a very abusive person who has a very serious submission fetish, but again, I couldn't find any literature on that. I mean, become very codependent. And of course, there is codependent personality disorder, or just codependence in general. I mean, those have a very strong relationship. Though really, what I mean by codependent, it really is just one person being dependent on the other and the abuser just taking advantage of that. The abuser's not really part of the codependence, really. Another characteristic someone with DPD will display is that they'll play it safe oftentimes at the cost of their own basic needs. For instance, someone might have an extreme fear about going to the grocery store and buying groceries. They only go to the store when their trusted individual can go with them. If the person is unable to go, then they choose to stay at home and be hungry rather than go out and buy groceries. They know they can stay at home and deal with the hunger, but they don't know if they can handle the nightmare scenario that is in their head if they go to the grocery store and something goes wrong. So I think because, I mean, people, when I talk about dependent personality disorder, it can apply to a bunch of different kinds of relationships, but it definitely, what I think of as more romantic partners and abusive relationships. And I definitely think that we kind of romanticize being in relationships so much that like certain serious issues, like someone too afraid to go to the grocery store themselves and wanting to go with their partner is like not seen as an issue. It's like, oh, how cute, you just want to do everything with your partner and really just show devotion and care. Isn't that cute? And a lot of the times, like, no, that's creepy, come on. I mean, it's nice to do stuff together, but to do everything together, such as you have to even go grocery shopping together all the time, even when, you know, it's not necessary for you to, no. So the author of his book, The Graham, doesn't give too many personal stories, but I did pick out some very interesting ones. And a lot of these cases are the kids grew up in very controlling environments, and the author, this is no exception. He wasn't allowed to pick out his own clothes for, well, I think all of his childhood. That may sound crazy, but this really did happen. Most children from a young age pick out their clothes for school, and it's usually not a big deal. Obviously, some kids will wear something inappropriate or something that's not fit for the weather. When that happens, the parent will tell them to go change clothes. For me, it was never something I had a choice in. Every single day my outfit was chosen for me, and this wasn't just for school. Even to go to my grandma's house on a Sunday, my mom would pick an outfit for me. Of course, when I became old enough, I didn't try to fight this, but it was of no use. It was for one reason or another why this shirt didn't go with this pants. And eventually, I grew tired of fighting, so I stopped. So sadly, I think those are some kind of parents that don't really have kids because they want kids just because maybe societal pressure, they need to, they just feel obligated, it makes them feel more important, or again, narcissism, and they want them exactly in their image. And I mean, that seems scary, but this is common a lot more. Parents are so afraid of their kids being different, they hyper-fixate on something and be like, this has to be exactly it or the world will fall apart. I mean, there's definitely a neuroticism also involved in it, like an OCD. Another example of this was her tying my shoes. I didn't learn how to tie my own shoes until I got into junior high. Maybe it was just easier to tie my shoes every morning before school rather than just to teach me. I love my parents, so I don't know the reason. I had to learn to tie my shoes before junior because I would have to take my street clothes off every morning to change for athletics. At my school, junior high consisted of 7th and 8th graders. I mean, when parents are that strict, I think it's definitely just more of they get off on basically micromanaging. Sorry, I shouldn't say get off when it comes to children, sorry. They just get a thrill from micromanaging everything, and they have kids because they just enjoy getting to just be responsible for every small little detail. Almost like curating dolls in a dollhouse. When I did make a choice on something, it would often be questioned. It could be for something simple like being at a restaurant and wanting to order a soda, but then doubting it because of that one time when I got too much caffeine late in the day and had trouble falling asleep. The thing is, through living at home and being in the bubble I was in, none of the things seemed to matter that much. I've seen parents have those conversations where they like put doubts in their kids' heads, like try to make them second guess, like, are you sure? Are you sure? Are you sure? It definitely is a superiority complex where parents just like the idea of being all-knowing, and their kids, of course, are the easiest things to portray that to. Now things were about to change because I was moving out for college. No, I didn't end up going to the local community college. I did, however, go to the 4-year university that was 30 minutes away from where I lived. My mom, of course, drove me to my orientation while a lot of other students drove themselves. My parents bought me a 7-day meal pass so I could eat the cafeteria on the weekends, but I always went home on weekends. This is where things became challenging for me because now things were more on me. I now had to pick my outfits out every day, and was surprisingly a struggle. I would text my mom a picture of what I was thinking about wearing and ask if it would go together. That's interesting because I just saw an Instagram reel. Oh my god, maybe I'll insert it.
A lot of men don't want a wife, they want a mom. And as a divorce lawyer, I see this very often. A marriage ends, and what's the first thing he does? He looks for another woman to cook, clean, remind him of appointments, and emotionally manage his life. That's not a partner. That's a mom with benefits. And the truth is that there are a lot of men who don't want an equal in a relationship. What they want is someone to take care of them. And when that woman finally gets tired of carrying all the weight, well, guess what? She's apparently changed, she's cold, and she's not the same woman that he married. No, she's just exhausted. Then the cycle repeats itself. He finds someone younger, someone more nurturing, someone who hasn't yet learned that this isn't love, it's labor. Because here's the thing, if a man can't function on his own, he can't cook a meal, he can't book an appointment or regulate his own emotions, he's not looking for a wife. He's looking for a caretaker. Men need to understand that your partner is not your mom. She's not your therapist, and she's not your personal assistant. A real relationship is about partnership, not dependency. So before you jump into another relationship after a divorce, ask yourself, are you looking for love, or are you just looking for another woman to save you from doing the work?
I think a lot of men who are very successful grew up in very controlling, high-pressure environments. And then, while they like the idea of having autonomy and control because of financial independence and success in career and getting respect, they have a very weird relationship towards it, which then they like love it, but it depresses them because it can be very triggering of all they were deprived as a child. I think that's why a lot of men become abusive towards their wives, because they like having full control and autonomy, but they also want to be hyper nurtured and also have input about every little thing in their lives like their parents gave, which they put pressure on their wives. And then their wives are like, oh god, this is insane, I'm not your mother, I don't have to give emotional support for everything, and of course that just falls apart. I noticed that I started to rely less on my mom and more on my partner as our relationship grew. Soon enough, I would lean on her heavily to take care of my admin type of tasks. I would want her approval for we should eat or if I was heading down the right path. By this point, I've been better about picking my own clothes, but there was a time when I picked an outfit and she said it didn't look good. That caused me to regress and start to doubt the clothes I was choosing, so I started to ask her if this or that outfit would look good before we would go out. Oh god, if I was in that situation, I would just doubt. I'm like, no, can't, oh my god, I cannot be. But again, I think women are told they have to be so nurturing that if a man clearly has issues with emotional independence, it's like seen as the woman's responsibility to like step up and like handle that. Okay, so the next book is by a publishing company called URA or some association or something, and the book is called Dependent Personality Disorder, Phases and Characteristics. Dependent Personality Disorder, Words, Attitudes, Thought Patterns. This book also gives a basic definition. Dependent personality disorder reflects the struggle of individuals who live with a profound anxiety feeling that they cannot sustain themselves without relying on others. We read that before. Okay, diagnostic criteria. Main diagnostic criteria: excessive dependence on others. Individuals have difficulty making decisions on their own and strongly tend to defer judgment to others. As a result, they habitually follow the opinions and directions of others in everyday life. 2. Excessive fear of abandonment. They harbor an intense fear of being left or abandoned by others. To maintain relationships, they will go to great lengths, even to the point of overextending themselves to meet the demands of others. 3. Lack of assertiveness. They struggle greatly with expressing their own opinions or prioritizing their own needs, often opting to follow the wishes of others. 4. Inability to tolerate being alone. They experience extreme anxiety when alone and constantly seek the presence of others. Consequently, they take actions to avoid being alone for extended periods of time. 5. Anxiety about new challenges. I think those are some solid diagnostic criteria, especially the being alone part. That part I've noticed very specifically. Some people can't be alone at all and need somebody around, even if it's someone extremely toxic. I think the pandemic exacerbated a lot of people these problems because then a lot of people went back to like abusive exes. Okay, so then we have more basic diagnostic criteria. Characteristics in relationship: individuals with dependent personality disorders are extremely submissive in relationships, always striving to keep up appearances and please others. As a result, they suppress their own opinions and emotions to constantly meet the expectations of others. While this behavior may be seen as others as being too kind or self-sacrificing, this is often driven by deep-seated anxiety and fear. I'm not sure I entirely believe that people with dependent personality disorder are just entirely passive. I think a lot, yes, but I also think some can be also very, what would be the word? Not naggy, I don't like that word, but can be assertive in some ways. Assertive when they feel threatened that they might be alone or that they aren't going to be taken care of. Then their clinginess can get a certain doministic characteristic to it. So this next book by Stella O. Maurice, called Overcoming Dependent Personality Disorder: Insights and Perspectives to Break Free and Build a Stronger Self, does have more subcategories to certain types of people who have this kind of issue. An overwhelming dependence on others for warmth and assistance is a symptom of dependent personality disorder, DPD, which makes people unable to be alone. In contrast to insecurity, which is frequent, individuals with dependent personality disorders' competence require validation. The hallmark of dependent personality disorder is a widespread psychological reliance on others. Only a small percentage of personas with this personality disorder can function normally in terms of independence, making them dependent on others for their psychological and physiological needs. DPD occurs in a range of circumstances and is linked to inadequate productivity. The signs might range from excessive passivity, heartbreak, or helplessness when relationships fail, to avoiding obligations and intense compliance. I like that. I like that there's more a variety of behaviors to identify that could lead to the diagnosis. And this book goes more into like what is the thought process of someone who has it and how it affects the outcome of their actions. Because they worry about losing favor or acceptance, they find it challenging to disagree with others, to avoid losing the support of others. They could consent to something they know is wrong. They refrain from becoming upset with friends and colleagues, even when it's proper to do so out of concern for their support. Individuals with DPD have trouble beginning a new activity and working independently, and they shy away from jobs that call for accepting responsibilities because they are certain that they are incapable of doing anything on their own. They portray themselves as being unable and in continual need of support and confidence. I agree with most of that, but I do think some people are working very high pressure, high corporate jobs that worsen their dependent personality disorder because there's a lot of pressure they have at work, and then they take it out, and to counter that, then they want to feel helpless at home, so they're not triggered about all the other issues they're having in their professional life. This next one I agree with 100%. People with dependent personality disorder frequently restrict their social relationships to a narrow circle of people who they can rely on. They start looking for a new partner as soon as a close relationship ends. They are not picky in selecting replacement due to their intense desire to be cared for. And they'll drop friends for a partner who is seen as more important also. Stella O. Maurice says that a lot of people, kind of what I said in the previous book, a lot of people who have this have backgrounds where the home was just very cold, where we're just like, no, we don't talk about our feelings kind of home. And she provides more kind of guidelines of diagnostic behavior patterns. 1. Incompetence to make choice on one's own without the support and guidance of others, even simple ones like a choice of clothing, a spouse, or others close relatives may often need always reassurance or comfort with persons with DPD, which may be draining and distressing for them. 2. Avoiding adult responsibilities by seeming feeble and inactive, relying on a spouse or acquaintance to make choices on where to live and work. 3. Fear of being left behind. When relationships break, an individual with DPD often jumps directly into another one because they have a severe fear of being abandoned and feel devastated or powerless. Even when a relationship is dysfunctional or dangerous, people with DPD may still cling to it. 4. Hypersensitivity or condemnation of disapproval. They tend to be more reclusive, affected by criticism, and afraid of rejection. And then we go into what I talked about earlier, comorbidities. Comorbidity is a dependent personality disorder. Comorbidities imply that multiple mental conditions have a common biological susceptibility when two separate types of disorders coexist. This is referred to as comorbid condition. Comorbid conditions won't affect everyone with DPD, and individual encounters may differ. Comorbid medical conditions may aggravate a person's symptoms as well as make it more difficult to detect or treat DPD. To enhance greater quality of life, it is crucial to treat both conditions. Here are some typical DPD comorbid conditions. Anxiety disorders. High-level anxiety are a common symptom of DPD, and these individuals may also have generalized anxiety disorder, panic disorder, or social anxiety disorder, major depressive disorder. I've said before, Stella O'Maurice in this book says that, again, the backgrounds of these people are very cold kind of upbringings and households, so here's a more specific example. Authoritarian parenting. When decisions are made for children and teens incorrectly, it fosters reliance and the incapacity to make choices. DPD has also been connected to instances of excessive protection and dictatorial parenting styles. I love this mug. It's got the Powerpuff Girls on it. Can you see it? Oh, is it focusing? I don't know if you can see it. Let me see. See, Powerpuff Girls. Okay, that's about it. I couldn't find a whole lot of other books. Like, there's psychology textbooks on Amazon, which just give the same basic definitions as, like, what I just read. But I wanted like more like advice books or like more personal storybooks. There really is anything. I did find on an old message board from a 2007 post about about struggling with dependent personality disorder, and some other poster recommending a book that would help. The book is not specifically about dependent personality disorder, but it was recommended as something that can help, and I thought, okay, why not read it? Let's see. And I did read it, and it was interesting. It was written a while ago, although I think a lot of the advice in there is still given to this day. Some things I agree with to help dependent personality disorder, some things I don't. I thought, let's go through it. The book is called Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway by Susan Jeffers. But basically, it's kind of one of those self-help confidence books. What is it for you? Fear of public speaking, asserting yourself, making decisions, intimacy, becoming a parent, not becoming a parent, changing jobs, being alone, with being with people, aging, driving, following your dream, losing loved one, ending a relationship. I mean, I think those are a lot of the problems people with DPD do have. My conviction that fear can be dealt with through reduction came about through my own experience. When I was younger, I was always run by fear, so it wasn't surprising that for years I hung on to many things in my life that clearly were not working for me. Part of my problem was the nonstop little voice inside my head that kept telling me, you'd better not change your situation. There's nothing else out there for you. You'll never make it on your own. You know the voice I'm talking about. The one that keeps reminding you, don't take a chance, you might make a mistake. Boy, you'll be sorry. My fear never seemed to abate, and I didn't have a moment's peace. Even my doctorate in psychology didn't seem to do me much good. Then one day I was dressing for work and I reached the turning point. So what was her big revelation then? Well, here it is. How could it be impossible to make a mistake or a wrong decision? How to let go of negative programming, how it is impossible to be taken advantage of, how to say yes to all circumstances in your life, and how to raise your level of self-esteem, how to become more mindful, how to become more assertive, how to connect with the powerhouse within, how to create more love, trust, and satisfaction, how to deal with resistance from significant others as you take more control of your life, how to experience more enjoyment, how to make your dreams become reality, and how to see yourself as having purpose and meaning. Yeah, I mean, don't we all need that? Don't we all? Oliver wants to change his career of 14 years and follow his dreams of becoming an artist. Emily is an actress who wants to discover why she finds all kinds of excuses for not attending auditions. Sarah wants to leave a marriage of 15 years. Ethan wants to get over his fear of aging. He is all of 32. Jean is a senior who wants to confront her doctor. He treats her like a child and never gives her any straight answers. Meredith is openly gay except at work. She is very career-oriented, believes that her sexual orientation would keep her from being promoted because there are no other openly gay employees in her company. Tess wants to expand her business but can't make the required leap into the next step. Lori wants to confront her husband with the things that have been bothering her about his attitude toward her. Gabe wants to get over a fear of rejection and make it very difficult to ask. So those were kinds of issues I think that range on scale from serious to just more or less serious. And Susan understands that and then has a different rating system of fears. So here's the first level. Level 1 fears. Those that happen, those requiring action, aging, making decisions, becoming disabled, going back to school, retirement, changing a career, being alone, making friends, children, leaving home, finding or beginning natural disasters, a relationship loss of financial security, having a child, dying, assertive oneself, war, traveling, illness, being interviewed, losing a loved one, driving accident, public speaking, rape, making a mistake, bankruptcy, intimacy. You might have a few you can add a list. As I hinted earlier, you wouldn't be alone if you said to yourself some of the above or even all of the above. There is a reason for this. One of the insidious qualities of fear is that it tends to permeate many areas of our lives. For example, if you fear making new friends, then it stands reason you also may fear going to parties, having intimate relationships. I didn't like that. That's too many different kinds of issues crammed into one, but our point is things that just kind of happen in life that we can't control. Level 2 fears. Rejection, being hustled, success, helplessness, failure, disapproval, feeling shame, disappointment, being vulnerable, loss of image. Level 2 fears have to do with inner states of mind rather than exterior situations. They reflect your sense of self and your ability to handle this world. This explains why generalized fear takes place. If you are afraid of being rejected, this fear will affect almost every area of your life. Rejection is rejection wherever it's found. So you begin to protect yourself. As a result, greatly limit yourself. You begin to shut down and close out the world around you. Look over the level 2 list once again, and you will see how any one of these fears can greatly impact many areas of your life. Level 3 gets down to the nitty-gritty of the issue, the biggest fear of all, the one that really keeps you stuck. Are you ready? Okay, level 2, I like that with diagnostics a little better. Understanding the certain triggers that make you just not want to deal with anything, which often is rejection. Level 3 fear, I can't handle it. That's it. That's the big deal. You may ask, I know you're disappointed, wanted something much more dramatic than that, but the truth is this. At the bottom of every one of your fears is simply the fear that you can't handle what life may bring you. Let's test this. Level 1 fears translate to I can't handle illness, I can't handle a mistake, I can't handle losing my job, I can't handle getting old, I can't handle being alone, I can't handle making a fool out of myself, I can't handle not getting the job, I can't handle losing my partner, I can't handle losing money. Level 2 fears translate to I can't handle the responsibility of success, I can't handle failure, I can't handle being rejected. Thus, level 3 is simply, I can't handle it. The truth is, you knew you could handle anything that came your way, what you possibly would have. I'm not sure I agree with that. I mean, I think there are certain things people just can't handle, like losing your job. No, some people can't handle losing their job because they'll be homeless. She lumped too many things in together. She should have, limited the scenarios down. By now you've gotten the picture. We can't escape fear. We can only transform it into a companion that accompanies us in all of our exciting adventures. It is not an anchor holding us transfixed in one spot. Some people have told me they are never afraid, but when I question them, they reveal that they were just differing on semantics. Yes, they'd feel nervous or anxious sometimes. They'd simply never label it fear. As far as I know, everyone feels fear as they move through life. It is absolutely possible that there are some evolved souls in the world who never experience fear. If I do, I promise I will become their avid student and report back to you with their secrets. You see, I know on some deep level there's nothing to fear. It's the surface level that needs convicting. In the meantime, I've learned to feel fear and do it anyway. I have mixed feelings about this. I do think a lot of the fear that we have is self-generated, but there are people who live with legit fears every day that do permeate them. And again, it's about how do you look past them? I think saying, well, we all have to live with it, so just learn to live with it, just fight it back. I'm not sure, but I think she is right. We are afraid and we have a hard time accepting it, and if we accept it a little more, then I think we'd be better. So I'm split on that. I have mixed feelings about what she said. But she elaborates more. Obviously, the real issue has nothing to do with fear, but rather how we hold fear. Some of the fear is totally irrelevant. For others, it creates state of paralysis. The former hold their fear from a position of power, choice, energy, action, and the latter hold from a position of pain, helplessness, depression, and paralysis. I do like what she said. I think a lot of people have fear because they have too many choices, too many responsibilities, and they have too much power they don't know what to do with. So they do nothing and then come off being helpless or want to be helpless because then they're relieved of responsibility. I think that ties in with a lot of the previous books I just read. A self-assured woman who is in control of her life draws like a magnet. She is so full of positive energy that people want to be around her, yet it is only when she has become more powerful within herself that she can become authentic and loving to those around her. The truth is that love and power go together. With power, one can really begin to open up the heart. With no power, love is distorted. People can overcome feeling powerlessness by learning to trust themselves and tap into their inner resource they didn't realize existed. Okay, so this book does turn into The Secret sometimes, and I don't know. Again, I kind of agree with that. I think when people are at peace with themselves, I guess to talk in a vibesy way, when people are at peace with themselves, they have more influence with other people because other people, even the most bitter, can sense how, I wouldn't say confident because, we don't exude confidence in every little thing, but I think, a calmness, I guess, in just your skin, your daily life, people can catch on to that. But I think it doesn't have as much influence as people would like to think, but I think it is important and sometimes undervalued that I hate the word fake it till you make it, but I think people do need to learn how to exude a sense of calmness, even if they're not totally feeling it in the moment. And I don't mean like fake positive with a creepy smile. Like, don't do that either. And a lot of the advice to give yourself more confidence, there'll be fear. I think it works a little bit, but I don't think as much as the author would like to think. I hope is another victim's phrase. I know has far more power. I hope I will get a job. I know I will get a job. What a difference. The first sets you up for worry and sleepless nights. The second has peace and calm about it. If only is boring. If you can hear the whine behind it, next time implies that you have learned from the situation and will put the learning to use another time. For example, if only I had signed up for that class can be restated as I've learned that space in those classes limited. Next time I'll be ready to sign up more quickly. I don't like that, the way she worded that, but I do think that sometimes the language we speak is set up to make us feel bad about ourselves. I know in one class, the teacher wanted to give us an inspirational quote, and she, a lot of times we tell ourselves, I should do this, I should do that, I should. That's just putting pressure on ourselves on obligations we don't really have to have. How about say, I could? If you say I could, then you're aware of all your choices and can prioritize them better. That quote came from self-help guru Louise Hay, who I do not like. She's passed away. I don't like her, but I think I did use that a few times and it actually helped. Don't say I should do this, I should do that, because it's just self-guilting. Say I could. It's your life. You can do what you want when, assuming you're an adult. But again, the point of this book is you have fear, it's gonna hurt you, let it hurt you a little bit, and then you'll build an endurance to it such that the fear lessens, which I think for some people can work a lot and for others, no. There's too many other issues you have to work through, and if you just charge through it, you're gonna trigger yourself and make your problems worse. Ultimately, you may enroll to get your graduate degree. You will be expanding, opening up, becoming bigger, but all at your own pace. As long as you are taking those risks, no matter how small, you are moving yourself the right on the pain to power chart. And again, then there's a lot of positive affirmations of like, hey, remember, you're in control, you're the one in control. I'm like, no, you're not. There are a lot of people getting laid off from their jobs. They didn't have control over that. And again, you can tell that this book was written before COVID and also before the 2008 crash. Positive books that inspire and motivate. I suggest that you buy your books instead of borrowing them from the library or reading them on an e-reader. The reason for this is that you will want to underline and write in the books and reread them over and over again. You will want to own these books in every sense of the word. They provide an incredible support system that is there for you all the time. I can't think of a better investment to help you create a better life. I have a large collection of books that I have read and reread many times over while highlighting certain passages, writing my notes and thoughts in the margins. And as I learn and grow, I can look back at what struck me as important in the past and what is important to me now, and how far I have come with the passage of time. This is an important thing, is being your personal library of inspiration now. Here then she gives real life examples of clients she worked with who definitely had some kind of panic disorder, anxiety disorder, or dependent personality disorder. Whitney was one of my earliest students. She lived in Garden City, Long Island, and for 18 years she had been too frightened to venture any farther. In fact, during the first few years prior to her attending my class, she had hardly left her home. She, as you might have guessed, had agoraphobia. My teaching is geared towards everyday fears as opposed to phobias, yet something drew her to my course. In order for her to get there, her husband Brian had to drive her to New York City to take her up to the classroom and wait for her downstairs. She was too frightened to be on her own. When it was her turn to speak in the go-around, I could see the anguish on her face. She was terrified she was going to have panic attacks. I used a technique called paradoxical intention on Whitney, which is simply stated means I encouraged her to do the very thing she feared. I guess in the classroom it's a more safe environment, but still, I don't know if a class can help. She needs a professional psychologist and diagnosis. I mean, is there special treatment for agoraphobia? I don't think that class was it. I think Susan Jeffers was being a little too full of herself. Richard had usually played it safe. He was an accountant who supported his wife and 2 kids for many years in the same job. In his late 30s, he decided there had been more to life than he was experiencing. One of the companies for which he had done a great deal of work for was for sale. It was a small tech company that showed a great deal of promise. When he discussed the idea of raising capital and buying the company, his wife couldn't deal with it. Her financial security was threatened. Obviously, she had no confidence in his ability to make it work. Richard decided that for his own mental health, he had to give it a try. He might fail, but if he didn't go ahead with it, he would spend the rest of his life doing what he didn't want to do, which was working for someone else. Despite his wife's disapproval, he made the purchase when he was finally able to raise the capital. No, that's a bad idea. One, yes, his wife had the concern. I mean, it's their shared home, so finance is important. And I understand he probably had a toxic job he didn't want, and a business would give him more dependence. But again, he should have taken his wife's opinion into it more, and maybe then look for another way, maybe a better job for him or another way for better independence. No. Raquel also chose growth over an unhealthy relationship. She was married very young and had 2 daughters in her first 4 years of marriage. It did not take long for her dissatisfaction to set in, and with the support of her husband, Roger, she went back to school to complete her education. When initially she was afraid she had lost her ability to learn after an absence of 5 years, she was the star in her class and graduated magna cum laude. This success encouraged her to get her master's degree and ultimately her doctorate. As long as she was a student, things seemed to go well with Roger, and he was really a marvelous help with children. But when she finally hung her doctoral diploma on the wall, after many years, her relationship with her husband seemed to change. She was in a full-fledged professional with an advanced degree. Okay, see, that's dependent personality disorder. The relationship was happy as long as she was dependent on him, but when she got more independence from her doctorate, then no, it switched. And again, more advice about life that I'm not sure I can really get behind. How to make a no-lose decision. One of the biggest fears that keeps us from moving ahead with our lives is our difficulty to make decisions. As one of my students lamented, sometimes I feel like the proverbial donkey between 2 bales of hay, unable to decide which one I want, and in the meantime starving to death. The irony, of course, is that by not choosing, we are choosing to starve. We are choosing to deprive ourselves of what makes a life a delicious feast. The problem is that we have been taught, be careful, you might make the wrong decision. A wrong decision, just the sound that can bring terror to our hearts. We are afraid that the wrong decision will deprive us of something, money, friends, love, status, or whatever the right decisions bring to us. Well, that's a perfectly rational fear. I mean, we don't want to lose money, friends, status, but I do think that there is too much of a shame on society when people make the wrong decisions, especially poor people who then lose more money. It's like, well, you were already poor. Why'd you do that? Like, well, how else were they gonna have a chance of getting out of it? Nothing is guaranteed. And that's the books I could find. Was this helpful to you? Was it helpful to you? Was it helpful to you? I don't know. Let me know. Thank you so much.